Hi, everyone. Welcome to part 3 of this Community Schools Foundations module. We're going to dive deeper into the second of 4 pillars of community schools. As a reminder, these questions guide our learning today. What framework is a community school based on? And how do we shift toward a community school model? We shared this image in part 1 and part 2 of this series of the 4 pillars of community schools. The 4 pillars are part of the framework of California community schools. We'll be discussing active family and community engagement today. In the previous video, part 2 of this series, we discussed collaborative leadership and practices and stressed the importance of involving all stakeholder voices in creating a shared vision, decision-making, and distributing responsibility through participatory practices. This pillar of active family and community engagement works alongside collaborative leadership and practices. The two reinforce each other, as we mentioned in the part 1 introductory video, that all pillars reinforce each other to make an effective community school. The active family and community engagement pillar promotes interaction among families, administration, and teachers to help families be more involved in the decisions about their children's education. Schools function as neighborhood hubs. There are educational opportunities for adults, and family members can share their stories and serve as equal partners in promoting student success. To shift our schools toward a community school model, we need to involve our students, their families, and the greater community. And it doesn't stop at involvement. It also needs to apply to decision-making and sharing power. You may have seen this image in part 2 when we discussed collaborative leadership and practices. In order to engage families and communities, they need to have a seat at the table. We need to create governing bodies such as school site councils or local school leadership councils in which students, parents, and community partners are also represented and have voting power. This is a shift toward a community school model to have meaningful opportunities for engagement and authentically promoting all stakeholder voices. Another way to put this pillar into practice is by identifying assets that already exist in the community. This is why the assets and needs assessment or other data your school may already collect is so important. When stakeholders complete the assets and needs assessment or other school surveys, they are sharing their voices on what they can contribute to the community school via their expertise, knowledge, skills, languages, and cultures. These are their assets. Also, the assets and needs assessments or other school data identify what stakeholders need the school to do for them. Perhaps families need more tutoring for their children or after-school care because they work longer hours and cannot support their students academically as much as they'd like to. Or perhaps some communities need educational opportunities such as language classes or financial literacy classes or even health clinic services, so they can have their own needs addressed as they strive to support their children. As I describe the what and how of this pillar, you can start to clearly see how the community schools model is an equity-enhancing strategy because some students, families, and communities need more or different supports in order to thrive. Involving families and community actively is the goal for this pillar. Finally, by establishing community partnerships, we can begin to address the needs of students, families, and communities in our schools. Many organizations provide tutoring services or after-school care, or meals, health, and mental health services, or other services to meet identified needs. LAEP, for example, arranges and provides a plethora of services to schools, such as events to support high schoolers in preparing for interviews or college and career readiness by supporting the application and financial aid process. Bringing in the community as additional resources supports students, families, and schools, so involving them is how you can start shifting toward a community school. Now, let's talk about shifting from engagement to empowerment. Here is a quote from Dr. Jacqueline Sanderlin. Let's face it, we as educators have been discussing community engagement for years, which basically means creating opportunities for involvement. Involvement is a wonderful thing, but I think it's time to take it to another level. Think of it like this. When we engage, it's like getting a lease. When we empower, it is ownership. When we empower our community, we are offering an opportunity to share in ownership. And ownership, my friend, translates to investment. Let's take a moment to let that sink in. So now that we've provided an overview of the active family and community engagement pillar, we'd like you to have a discussion if you're participating in teams. Feel free to divide yourselves into pairs or small groups of 3 to 4. If you are participating individually, please reflect on these questions and write your thoughts in the note-taking handout provided with this webinar. We do encourage you to use norms of collaboration to foster positive discussion and facilitation. Before you discuss in groups, decide which norm you will adhere to. Feel free to share your chosen norm with your partner or group, or type it in the chat if you are video conferencing. Here are the questions. What does family and community engagement or empowerment mean to you? How do your school sites prioritize and or promote authentic parent-family engagement? Empowerment? Pause the video here for about 10 minutes to discuss with your partner or group or to write your reflections. Feel free to take more time if you need. This is the end of part 3 of this series. Click the next video, part 4, for a discussion on the next pillar of community schools.